Okay, history fanatics, let's set the scene. Imagine the year 1300. You're living in Europe. What's the vibe check? It's seriously mid. Everything's gray. The average lifespan is like 30. Art is just simple pictures of saints looking worried. If you're not a peasant working in the mud, you're a monk praying in the dark. Life is tough and culture is minimal. This is what we call the Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages. But then something happens in one little city in Italy called Florence. The whole mood shifts. The fashion gets sharper. The buildings get bigger. The art? It goes from simple sketches to absolute masterpieces. It's the ultimate glow-up. This explosive cultural moment is the Renaissance. And here's the thing they don't tell you in high school. The Renaissance wasn't just a sudden burst of genius. It was funded. The real main characters of the Renaissance weren't wearing armor or wielding paintbrushes. They were wearing velvet and sitting behind a massive desk in a bank office. This family was literally built different. Forget kings and emperors for a minute. The real power belonged to the Medici. They were bankers. They were the family that invented the modern financial system and then used that money to buy an empire. Not with armies, but with art and influence. This family created so much FU money that they were able to control governments, fund Leonardo da Vinci, and put 3 of their own family members on the throne as pope. Yeah. The central question of this crash course is simple. How did a rich family of merchants become the undisputed shadow rulers of Europe? How did they turn money into history?
How?
Stick around because we're going to break down the banking, the betrayals, and the sheer audacity of the Medici. This is the Renaissance. How to buy an empire for dummies.
Blah, 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 blah.
Let's start with the money.
Chapter 2. Cosimo, the OG banker.
We established that the Medici had cash, but where did it come from? It all started with Giovanni de' Bici de' Medici, but his son Cosimo is the one who took the family business and made it straight up global. He's the original gangster, the OG banker.
Man, this is the spot. Like this Vargo's hood. Man, I don't give a shit. I'm gangster.
Now, in the 1400s, there's a big problem. The church says charging interest on loans, usury, is a sin. But lending money is the whole point of a bank. Major conflict. The Medici solution was genius and totally legal. They called it exchange. If you were a merchant in London, you'd deposit money with the Medici branch there. They'd give you a piece of paper, a letter of credit. You could then take that paper to the Medici branch in Florence, and they'd give you the money there, minus a small fee for the exchange.
A small price to pay for salvation.
See what they did there? They charged you a fee to change currencies, which looked different than charging interest, but functioned the same way. This created the first international ATM network. Suddenly, you could travel across Europe without carrying a wagon full of gold, all thanks to the Medici. And every city they operated in, they became the financial backbone.
I'm gonna need at least 20 chiropractors after this.
They had the biggest and most reliable bank in Europe. They were making so much money, they achieved what we now call FU money, the kind of wealth that lets you walk into any room and change the entire conversation.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000!
Cosimo realized that in Florence, politics was controlled by money. If you were an important family or a city official, you eventually needed a loan to cover a bad investment or a war. And guess who held the note? The Medici. He never ran for official president or mayor. That was too risky. He wanted the real power. He was the guy who stayed out of the spotlight but knew exactly which council member's son he was paying for school and which politician was behind on his mortgage. He was the city's shadow CEO. Cosimo understood that power isn't just about who owes you money. It's about clout. It's about reputation. It's about legacy. And how do you buy a great reputation? You buy great art. He was the ultimate investor in culture. He didn't just buy statues, he bought bragging rights. He commissioned buildings, rebuilt churches, and crucially, he started collecting old books and scrolls, the ancient Greek content we talked about earlier. By funding scholars to translate and study these ancient texts, Cosimo wasn't just being nice. He was saying, I'm not just rich, I'm smart. My family is cultured. We are the reason the lights are back on in Europe. It was the ultimate soft power flex. Cosimo gave the money a good name, and in return, the money gave the Medici total control over the city.
Ooh-wee, look what that money make a bitch do.
But what happens when the next generation inherits all that power? We'll get into the political drama, the backstabbing, the jealousy, and the assassinations in Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. The Power Play. Pulling the Strings.
So we know Cosimo was the OG banker. He had the FU money. But here is the major secret to the Medici's power that lasted over 300 years. Cosimo never became the official ruler of Florence. He didn't have a crown. He didn't call himself a king. He refused the titles. Why? Because being the official boss makes you a target. He wanted the power, not the paperwork. He wanted to be the city's shadow CEO, and that meant controlling who was elected without ever running for office himself. How did he do this? He mastered the art of debt and favors. Florence was a republic, meaning citizens could vote, but running a major city is expensive, and powerful families, the ones who ran the government, were always overspending.
Money, 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 money.
They'd come to the Medici Bank for a loan. Cosimo was a very generous lender to people he liked. He made sure that the men who were elected and the men who did the electing were people who were already either indebted to him or dependent on his favor.
You are mine! You are mine!
Let him know I got planned.
Bitch! Gonna get you put. I'm gonna put my fist right inside your fat ass.
It was a perfect system. If you wanted a job in government, you had to be Medici approved. If you were in government, you were already deep in the bank's pocket. Cosimo didn't need to pass laws. He just needed to make a phone call to the guy who owed him a favor. Big puppet master energy. He also knew that the people needed to love the Medici, so he poured money into the city, building roads, hospitals, and churches. This wasn't just charity, it was a public relations campaign. He made the city beautiful, safe, and rich. So when people complained about the shadow CEO controlling things, the average Florentine would say, hold up, but my life is better now. This is also why he heavily funded humanism. If you remember, humanism is the idea that humans, our intellect, and our achievements are the focus, not just pure religion. Cosimo funded this because it legitimized his family's focus on wealth, success, and earthly power. He was subtly shifting the vibe of the entire culture. He was basically saying, the church is great, but look at what we humans can build. Look at what we can achieve. He was sponsoring the greatest thinkers to justify his own existence.
Oh my God, bro, go away.
It was the ultimate calculated soft power flex. Cosimo played the political game perfectly. But the problem with a shadow CEO is that eventually the heir to the throne has to take over. Cosimo's grandson, Lorenzo, was born into all that power and all that wealth. He was about to inherit the biggest target in Europe. And the people who hated the Medici were just waiting for their moment to yeet them out of power. That's the drama we tackle next.
Chapter 4. Lorenzo the Goat Patron.
So Cosimo was the shadow CEO. He built the bank and he built the political machine. Now enter his grandson, Lorenzo. Lorenzo inherited the entire setup, and he decided it was time to officially flex.
This is why niggas want us, boy. This why they want us gone. This why they don't want us to have land right here. Fuck you on.
Lorenzo was different. He wasn't just a banker, he was a poet, a scholar, a diplomat, and a total party host. If Cosimo was the founder of the company, Lorenzo was the charismatic CEO who made the brand cool. He earned the nickname Il Magnifico, the Magnificent. Lorenzo understood that money could buy power, but culture buys immortality. He wanted Florence to be the center of the world, and he made it happen by becoming the greatest art patron in history. He was the original investor and genius. Get this, he literally took a young, promising artist named Michelangelo into his own house and paid for his education. He also financially backed guys like Sandro Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci. He was commissioning masterpieces from them when they were practically kids. Lorenzo was the GOAT of patrons. Why do we have works like The Birth of Venus? Because Lorenzo's money was behind it. Why did the art suddenly become realistic, dramatic, and focused on beauty? Because Lorenzo and the Medici were paying for that vibe shift. They didn't just buy art, they curated a new culture. They made Florence a place where the smartest, most talented people had to be. This was the ultimate soft power flex. It validated the humanist idea that people could achieve greatness. And Lorenzo was the one proving it by writing the checks. While he was funding geniuses, Lorenzo was also maintaining the political control his grandfather established. He ruled Florence with charm and popularity. His parties were legendary. He kept the common people happy with festivals and feasts, securing his political base. But all this success and charisma bred massive, simmering jealousy. Every rival wealthy family in Florence, especially the Pazzi family, felt deeply overshadowed and disrespected.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
They saw Lorenzo's popularity not as a miracle, but a political threat. The Pazzi were thinking, we are just as rich, but the common people only care about Lorenzo's parties and his artists. They started looking for a way to get rid of the Medici, not just politically, but violently. They were planning to yeet the entire family out of Florence in one bloody day.
Chapter 4. The Climax and Downfall.
So, Lorenzo the Magnificent is enjoying his time as Florence's star boy. But the Pazzi family, another wealthy, powerful banking family, are absolutely seething with jealousy. They were thinking, we have the money, but Lorenzo has all the clout. We need to reset the whole system. This wasn't just a rivalry, it was a high-stakes beef for control of the city. The Pazzi hated that the Medici had essentially weaponized debt and art to run Florence. And they found some very powerful friends to join their side. The Pope. Yeah, the Pope. Sixtus IV was tired of the Medici using their bank to bully him financially. So the Pazzi and the Pope teamed up and cooked up a wild plan: assassinate Lorenzo and his younger brother Giuliano at the exact same time. The plan was set for Sunday, April 26, 1878, during Easter Mass at the Florence Cathedral. Why the church? Because it was the one place the Medici would feel completely safe.
You say you got caught lacking.
I was caught lagging.
Yeah. Right, now say you a bitch. No.
I'm a bitch.
No. Yeah. Say you always have been.
The moment the priest raised the host, the signal for communion was the signal for the attack. Talk about a lack of respect for the main character. The attack begins. Giuliano de' Medici is immediately killed, stabbed repeatedly. However, Lorenzo, the target, was only wounded. He reacted fast, drew his sword, and was rushed to the safety of the sacristy by his friends. The Pazzi conspirators ran through the streets, shouting "Liberty!" hoping the citizens would rise up and help them take the Medici out of power. But guess what? The citizens didn't care about liberty.
Nope. I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you,
we don't care.
They liked the peace and prosperity the Medici had brought them. The entire conspiracy failed in a matter of hours.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
And Lorenzo's response was brutal and immediate.
He didn't wait for a trial. The assassins and anyone connected to the Pazzi, including the archbishop who had helped plan it, were immediately hunted down, captured, and executed by the furious Florentine mob. The family that funded the most beautiful art in the world was now displaying the sheer ruthlessness required to keep their power. Lorenzo wasn't just a poet, he was a political survivor. He sent a clear message: you come at the king, even the Shadow King, you better not miss.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Chapter 6. Conclusion. The power that lasted.
So Lorenzo survived the assassination attempt, but he was left with a massive problem. The Pope had declared war on Florence. No amount of FU money could beat the Pope's actual armies. Lorenzo proved he was not just a patron of art, but a master diplomat. He made a savvier move than anyone expected. He literally walked away from the war and traveled alone to Naples, the Pope's strongest ally, and convinced them to abandon the Pope. He used his charm and his reputation, the same reputation he bought with art, to win the war without fighting. Lorenzo died relatively young, but his death didn't end the story. The Medici family's power was so deeply embedded that even when they were briefly exiled, they always came back. They eventually stopped being the shadow CEO and started taking the official titles. Over the next centuries, the Medici dynasty achieved even greater things. They gave the Catholic Church two of its most famous popes. They intermarried with European royalty, essentially putting a Medici woman, Catherine de' Medici, on the throne as the Queen of France. When we look at the Renaissance today, at the art, the architecture, the science, we are seeing the legacy of a single banking family. They proved that with enough money, ruthlessness, and an incredible understanding of clout, you could buy not just a city, but a permanent place in history. That's the story of the Medici. They were the ultimate operators who understood that culture and wealth are intertwined. They didn't just fund the Renaissance, they were the engine that built it. And that, my friends, is how you buy an empire. Mic drop.